Hello, and welcome back to episode 31. So last week was quite a special, or the last episode, shall I say. The last episode was very poignant. It was obviously my 30th one, and there was so much going on, and it was a huge thank you to you guys and every listen, every follow on Spotify, every sort of share, tag, story. I love seeing them, and also hearing what people have related to and the things that people have picked up on. And it was really nice to sort of highlight that in the last episode for you guys. And as most of you are aware, if you're following this along, I also announced a giveaway. So I also put onto my Instagram about the giveaway, and that was the way to enter. And the giveaway is for a £50 Emerge Elite voucher, which obviously, if you're watching this, I'm wearing one of the tops. I believe the cute is a cupcake one on today, and a £30 Nando's voucher. And this is obviously just a big thank you back to you guys. So obviously, to enter that, I got everyone to comment on to the giveaway post. And it was really interesting to read the comments about the moments that you guys liked and the episodes that were your favorite, and just so different from what people loved, and it was so nice of hearing what you guys can relate to more than anything else. And I think there is something from every episode that everyone has picked up on or taken away from, and that is the whole reason why I wanted to sort of start the podcast, because it's just all these topics. I have so many conversations with my clients and with sort of people I chat to in the gym daily, family, friends, and they always have these just random questions, I think, either whether it's relating to my journey, whether it's relating to their journey, and it's always really interesting to highlight those topics. So to hear what you guys have taken away from that is awesome, and I've got some of them up now. Obviously, some of the myth busting that my coach and I spoke about was interesting, as well as some of the swearing along with it. Sometimes more episodes than others, depending on what guest is on. And also episodes about talking about mental clarity, planning your day, and not stressing about not fitting things in. A lot of people loved the episode I did with Kirsty and Jake, and just their progress of how they got to do the shoot. And obviously the training around hormones. And I really like one of my clients, she commented on the post and spoke about the analogy that my coach said in the episode. And it's one I always speak about with my clients of if your car is parked, you do not need as much fuel in it. Therefore, if it is resting, you're not doing as much moving, we don't need, the same amount of fuel or in the same way. So it's really nice to sort of see what you guys are picking up on from the podcast, which is awesome. So obviously every comment, all the tags and all the shares have been noted down. And I have got, if you are watching this, a little wheel with everyone's names in it for who is going to be able to have the giveaway. So I've put everyone's names in, and obviously I will announce the winner, but I feel like I need to do it to the camera. I know most of you who are listening won't be able to see this, but I am going to do it kind of live. So I'm just going to tap to spin, and it's going, and I will be able to announce. Who have we got? It is Megan Jones. So I will be in touch with your prize. So congratulations. And it's just really exciting to do the winner. I'm going to screenshot this so that I know and I do not forget. But yeah, it's really nice to give back to you guys, and also get you to interact so I can sort of see what you guys are loving about the podcast. And as always, on that note, please let me know if there's any topics that you want me to highlight, or a Q&A, one which I think we haven't done in a really long time. I think I did one right at the start. And it'd be really interesting to see what questions you guys have for myself, or maybe my coach, or maybe a few guests. So do let me know with anything that sort of sticks out for me to highlight for you. But today's episode is a little bit more of a catch up. I spoke about my journey right at the start of this podcast, which is almost a year ago, which is crazy. Happy September, everyone. And I think I spoke a lot about my journey, where I've sort of come from and where my bodybuilding journey is at. And I thought I'd do like a little catch up from that, as it's now been a year since I have stepped off stage from my first bodybuilding season. So I thought I'd just have a little chit chat with you guys, because I get quite a lot of questions of sort of where I'm at with my off season. And when you're in the gym with people, we always talk about, oh, like, how's your training going? What are you pushing for at the moment? Now, sometimes that doesn't always have to be something specific. I think a lot of people put pressure on themselves to have a specific goal at a certain point. But we don't always need to have like a certain time frame. Now, for me, when I came off stage, I knew I was taking at least like 18 months off, or 12 months to 18 months off into a pushing phase into off season. And it's really difficult when people are like, oh, so where are we at now? You know, and you're like, I'm still doing the do. And that is probably one of my favorite sayings to explain to someone, because it is kind of a rinse and repeat model. You know, that's what we do in bodybuilding. It's nothing super extravagant, or like there's no magic thing that happens that we do that's different to people. We just obviously have that drive for our training, for our nutrition, and the routine that we stick to. Now, more or less, whether you're in like a prep or a cutting phase, to whether you're in a growth phase or off season, all the goals are still there, right? So you've still got your steps, you've still got your water, you still manage your stress and manage and plan out your workouts and your training and your nutrition. But depending on what phase you're in, depends on where those goalposts are set at. Now, obviously, I work really closely with my coach, John, and he sets those goals depending on the phase that we're in. So it's been a whirlwind. I cannot believe that it's now been a year since I stepped off stage. Obviously, I did 3 shows in my first season. Obviously, the last 2 shows were back to back over a weekend, which was quite something. And it was a wicked first season. And I think it was obviously a real adjustment. And obviously, I had Justine and Emily on the podcast quite a while ago now, and we spoke about post-show because we all did the same season together. And it's an adjustment. Post-show or post-diet phase, I think, is probably one of the most crucial points. And obviously, to break it down, and I say to a lot of people, actually, I took around 3 months to feel normal, give or take, whatever you associate that to be. And it just is trusting the process in the recovery, post-diet phase, prep phase, and, you know, being on stage. It's an adjustment because you have to, your body is trying to catch up with what your mind's doing, your mind's trying to catch up with your body's doing, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to sort of have a certain expectation of ourselves, and there is adjustments. Your body is changing, and obviously in bodybuilding, you're pushing then, you're sort of looking ahead to the other end of the extreme, right? Being on stage is a really, really extreme diet phase, and it is an extreme sport. So with that comes more extreme outcomes in terms of how we recover from that compared to just a regular lifestyle diet phase for a holiday. So I just want to highlight that it is just trusting that process and not putting so much pressure on myself that, you know, things were feeling all over the place. And it's really hard to know what's right and what's wrong because every prep feels different. Every post-prep phase feels different. And I'm sure this time next year, when I'm in my prep, that it's going to feel entirely different again then. And obviously more updates will, I'm sure, arrive when that comes around. So it took me around 3 months to feel normal. I then in January, so I finished in September, 3 months recovery phase, pushed food up a little bit more from there. January, I did a mini cut, so that's a month gone. And then since then, I've really been pushing. Now, when you break it down, I would say to a lot of people when I came off stage, I've got 18 months off season now till I next get on stage. They're like, wow, that's a long time. But actually, it's not. When you take off those 3 months, you take off another month for a mini cut just to bring things in. I've just finished another mini cut. We're already at 5 months, 6 months of, not pushing food, pushing training, pushing everything. Obviously, I'm working as hard as possible in that time, but especially in recovery phase, we're not focusing on growing muscle. We're focusing on recovering that body. So, which is why I'm so grateful that I've taken time off. And I've taken this time to really push the muscle growth that I want to put on, because I want next season to be unstoppable in comparison to my first season. So just to kind of put in that perspective of timeline, now I will probably have another mini cut before I next properly prep. So I've got probably 7-ish months of growing left. And I will then probably, again, have more updates to bring to you guys. But actually, how much time it takes to grow muscle is a very long time. And being a natural, that recovery is obviously so important. So it's always interesting speaking about timelines. But it's trusting that process. It's enjoying that process. And off season is pretty darn cool. So I have, for the past month, or for August, I did a mini cut. Now, this was to just bring everything back to the room for where I'm going. My appetite decreased hugely. I was probably gagging at most meals for the 2 weeks consistently prior to starting my mini cut. I was not interested in food. Now, I never thought I'd get to that point. I finished prep and I was like, oh, no, I'm a real foodie. For anyone who knows me, I love going out for food, love the sweet stuff, love the bakeries, love having a really, really nice meal out and sharing that with friends. But it just didn't get to that point. I remember I made myself 2 chicken wraps and I couldn't even finish one. And that is a little bit of a problem because you gotta eat. We've got to eat our food. Now, again, people say in prep, but I think it's still relevant in off season. The judges do not care, work harder. No one cares, work harder. And they don't care if you are struggling to eat a meal, but ultimately they care the package that you bring on stage. Now, if we just don't start eating our meals and we start skipping stuff because we're not hungry, if I listen to not being hungry, I'm not going to get the best outcome for how I'm pushing my body, how I'm pushing for muscle growth, and how I'm really pushing for that body composition shift. So it is a bit of force feeding. Now, again, this is an extreme sport and we are talking to the extremes of it. But it still is relevant in lifestyle for you guys out there. I think a lot of people listen to their appetite, and I think it's always not useful. Obviously, we are in a diet phase. Hunger signals we expect to be there. When we are just not hungry for lunch, I'm not that hungry for it, we've actually got to think about then the impact of we are lacking in fuel and we are lacking in fueling ourselves by skipping that meal. It's not just a case of, I should only eat when I'm hungry. Actually, we want to be regularly eating, regularly fueling ourselves, whether or not that is for an extreme sort of pushing of training, if you're someone who trains a lot, or if you're not, we still want, that fuel. And a lot of people go, I don't need it. But actually, it's probably the reason why, you're feeling quite lethargic. You're not moving as much. You've not got that spring in your step. You're not as present with the things that you talk about, whether it be at work, if you're in meetings. We want to be hot on it. And our food and our water is going to make a huge impact on that. Now, obviously, then bringing it back to where I was at the sort of peak of my off season, I guess, prior to my mini cut, it was about time to just bring things in. We want my body responsive again. I want to feel hungry. I want my appetite back. And composition wise, physically, looking like visuals, we just want to just pull things in. We don't need anything to be major, but we just want to pull things in. So then when I come out of my mini cut, the weight that I put on is productive. We don't want to put on unnecessary weight. We want to be able to see where that composition shifts. We want to be able to see the most muscle growth possible. Obviously that comes with putting on a little bit of body fat, but we just want to, in a mini cut, drop that body fat slightly so we can then productively push on for that muscle mass. And I think a lot of people find it quite interesting when we talk about growth phases. Now, obviously, this is my first proper off season that I've committed to. I did do like a mini off season post the first shoot that I did with my coach before I went into prep, but this is like a whole nother ball game in terms of the length of time I'm doing this for and the goals that I'm now pushing for in terms of shows and things. So it's just crazy to think that my last diet phase was back in January. So what, for 6-7 months, I've been in like a surplus of food. And that has only changed, I think, once or twice in a push up of food. But body responded really well through summer and we were in such a good groove. And I'm feeling really, really, really good. So obviously we're at the mini cut and I decided to book an off-season shoot. Now, I have been wanting to plan an off-season shoot for a really long time, but it's just finding the right timing for it. And a photographer that did my Wales show last year for the show that I won, he is absolutely fantastic. His name is Matt Thomas, and I'm hoping to get him onto the podcast in the next few episodes. So do stay tuned. He offered a really, really different style of shoot. And I was like, why not? Let's go for it. And this was pretty cool. So I booked it to be done at the end of my mini cut, which just tied in nicely with where sort of that, how smooth my mini cut went, how like it just ended it really well. Obviously, there are no major changes in my mini cut visually. Everything kind of pulled in, but it was nothing major that you're going to see huge shreds. Like it was a 4-week mini cut. It was nothing extreme. It was very much get in, get out, shift some body fat, and then we crack on again. So booking the off-season shoot came with perfect timing. And I wanted to get across to everyone that it's so cool to embrace that. Now, I felt amazing on prep. And I also feel amazing in off-season. Now, they are two very, very different amazings. The shreds are cool. They're sick. We love seeing more lines. We love feeling tighter in ourselves. And we love seeing that side of things. But equally, like, it's so nice to feel as confident. Like, I think I'm 25 pounds up from my stage weight. And I feel just as confident and just as excited. It's just very different in terms of shape, in terms of composition, but it's necessary for the goals that I have for next year. So I just want to preach that to people more than anything else. And so to document that, having the shoot was fantastic. Now, the style of shoot that I did, if you haven't seen it on my socials yet, and there is more posts to come with that, I did a water shoot, which was very, very interesting. So what Matt does is he has it's essentially like a pipe above you, and it looks like it's raining on you. And it was freezing for those who are curious. And it was a really, really hot day, which we were really fortunate for. And I just thought it would capture my vision perfectly for how the vision I had. I was on Pinterest a few days before, just trying to make sure that I had the right idea. And it was really, really, really cool. And it felt so good. I drove to Gloucester on my own to meet Matt. The shoot was based at a gym, but obviously we did it outside because we cannot have like a rain shower in the gym. And yeah, it was just awesome to feel that good and just embrace so many different poses. I think, we're always gonna, I'm always gonna have the stage shots of me being super shredded. I'm always gonna have the gym shots of me like with a crazy pump and seeing veins and seeing striations. But this was not about that. It was about the shape that I've built, the muscle that I've built, and being so damn proud of that. And to think the position that I'm in, and I've got another 7 months to go to grow, really excites me for next year. Now I'm not jumping ahead. I've got to focus on what I'm doing still every day to get to that point. But it's really nice to see the comparisons from my check-in over the mini cut, and also comparing when I was at that same weight. And obviously a lot of this I post onto my socials, on my Instagram and my stories, and I try and sort of get that across to you guys as much as possible, and really embracing the long term. Each phase, it's always different. No phase looks the same. And also when we push up to a certain body weight, sometimes then when you cross over that body weight again back down, your composition is entirely different. And I got really, really excited when I compared my check-in photos at the weight I finished on my mini cut. I was actually the same weight back in Feb. I look entirely different, and what I've built is really, really exciting. Now, again, it's nothing dramatic. It takes ages to grow muscle, but still seeing that shift is really fun to sort of know that the long term and putting the commitment into a long-term journey is everything. And that's what it's about, and being so proud of what you're capable of, the training that you can put in, and no goal's ever the same. And the goal is always shifting, and looking at it long term. Like, yes, of course, my focus is on, I've got a long-term goal of getting back on stage next year and beating my look from last year. But right now I focus on the short-term goals, and I focused on my mini cut. Now I'm focusing on pushing back up. Then I'll have another mini cut further down the line, and I'll have to focus on that then. But that long-term of being on stage is still there. So it's just really fascinating to sort of look at it in that way more than anything else. And yeah, it's quite fun to sort of have different focuses, and having 6-week focuses, 8-week focuses. And obviously working with a coach will enable you to do that, to understand how we work in certain phases, rather than just thinking, oh, I'm just going to go on a diet, or I'm just going to grow some muscle. Let's have a bit of direction, and having that communication with a coach can really enhance that, to look at your journey so much further than just black and white. So all really, really exciting stuff. Now, obviously, really sort of jumping ahead, a lot of people are asking me, oh, do you know when you're competing? Do you know when your shows are? The answer is no. I do not know, but there are some rough ideas. So the bodybuilding calendar doesn't normally come out until the end of the year, in December time, when the season of the current year is finished. So that's when, federations start releasing their dates for next year, and the calendar starts to sort of build up, and you can map out some things. Now, the bodybuilding season runs in 2 halves. It runs in from like January to April, May, June time, and then it kind of kicks off again end of July, August, September. So the back half of the season is now. And the back half of the season, or the second half of the season, should I say, that's when you have a lot of the finals in October. I'm not going to be going, but like, for example, like the Olympia's always in October, November, all the big finals, all the big championships, all the abroad shows, all the worlds and stuff, they're always at that end of the year. So a lot of people choose to compete, and a lot of people who are really pushing to be really competitive in the sport choose to compete the back half of the season. Now, my goal long term is to push for the latter half of next year. But I will not know that until the calendar comes out, to kind of map out the shows that I want to do. And obviously, it's not quite as easy as, I'll just pick that one. We've got to you have to kind of understand the federation. Obviously, I'm a natural, so I take that into consideration of competing against other naturals. I also have to look at the shows that I competed last year. Do I want to compete with the same federation again next year? And so some of that is shifting for me. So there's so much in store, but I won't know fully when like dates are until the back end of the year, heading towards Christmas, which is terrifying because I feel like it's going to creep up way sooner than we think. But it's also about sort of identifying, whether my prep starts in January, if I want to compete in the middle half of the year, or if it starts in April, May time. Now, obviously, this gives me a little bit extra time growing, which is sort of what I want to do because I want to maximize the best position possible that I can be in. But equally, that will be a conversation with my coach at the start of the year. Now, most of the time, when you pick your show, being female, we give around the 20-week mark-ish. Now, especially being natural, that's quite normal timescale. And then obviously if you add on shows after that, you can head between 20 to sort of 28, 30 weeks of your entire prep. I did a 30-week prep last year, so I know that my body survived that fine and we loved it, but that was kind of enough for what my body could hold and push for. So I wouldn't really like it to be any longer than that. So when you know your show date, you then essentially have to work backwards of, okay, what week do I kind of need to start? Where is this starting point? And obviously having conversations with your coach will also be helpful with that. But equally, it's your sort of responsibility as an athlete to know the kind of feds you want to push for, and sort of to explain that, and then go to your coach and then sort of talk further about that, about their thoughts and sort of where they think you are for what category, etc. So that's kind of where things are at the moment. I've obviously just finished my mini cut. I did the shoots last week, and I'm now on like a deload. So for those who don't know what a deload is, I think a lot of these sort of jargon words are sort of said on Instagram and said on TikTok and stuff, and no one really knows what they are. But a deload is basically when you want to chill. So obviously I train 5 times a week. I do a lot of cardio. I was on 7 times a week cardio on my mini cut. My body is tired. My body is fatigued. I have been pushing in this sort of training phase for 8 weeks now. So between the 8 and 12 week mark, you want to kind of identify then that, okay, it's time to pull things back. We take sessions a little bit easier. We reduce the amount of sessions that we do. We reduce cardio, reduce steps just to feel fresh. So our bodies are a little bit happier. So next week when I come to pushing up, my food goes back up, my training goes back up, we go full pelt, ready to go into a new phase, and we give it everything. Now I will be able to do that because I focused on so much recovery. It's basically a recovery week to feel fresher, ready to go into the next phase. So that is where I'm at. Obviously, I've given a bit of insight for where sort of I'm thinking long term for shows, but we've got a bit of pushing to do first. And I'm really, really excited for what the next sort of 7 months does, sort of for my body composition and where we're at with shifting and pushing training and pushing food. And now my appetite is back, which is lovely. And obviously it's always occasion season, so it's always nice to celebrate that with friends and family and heading into Christmas. And obviously there's loads of stuff incoming for my team, to sort of end a lovely note with this catch-up podcast. And the team have been on fire. Obviously, I have posted a lot. I've done a lot of team shoots this year. I've done some singular shoots. I've got some singular shoots incoming. Now, not all of my team do shoots, and people have been pushing for holidays. People have just been feeling good for just being consistent and really owning their journey and feeling more confident. And, that is ultimately what I want for my team. And we have plans for like Christmas party and all sorts, and it just feels bonkers that I'm even saying that word. And next year I am hoping to do some more team shoots, offering a little bit more than I did this year. And obviously, if you have any questions about the coaching that I offer, I am always a message away for that, and sort of to get you feeling good for accountability, your confidence in your training. Obviously, I train one-to-one as well as my online coaching. And I think as well, your journey is not just about your training or just your nutrition. It's about your stress management. It's about your time management. It's about your sleep, your water, your hydration, and how we can approach certain situations and feeling confident to still go out and not feel restricted. And this is what's really showing in my team at the moment, heading sort of out of summer, which is awesome. So yeah, obviously, if you have any questions on that, do feel free to let me know. And obviously, if there's any topics that I've kind of highlighted through this catch-up podcast that you have sort of you have more questions on, or something's been like, oh, that's different, could you speak a little bit more about this? I am all here for it. Obviously, I have a lot of guests in the pipeline in the next few episodes incoming, so do stay tuned. Obviously, every podcast is out every 2 weeks on a Thursday in the afternoon, so do stay tuned for when they release. Turn the notifications on, and as always, do share any tags, any stories, anything that you've realized. I love it. I love to hear it. Send me messages, or tag me in any of your posts from it. But thank you again for joining me. Thank you always for listening, and stay tuned because this kicks off season 2 of the podcast. And here we go for more episodes and more guests incoming. Thank you so much, guys, and I shall see you on the next episode. A big thank you for joining me on my channel and tuning in. Find me on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon and YouTube, A Diary to Empower. Follow me on Instagram, m_power.fitness, and TikTok, m.ibert. See you on the next episode.